Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. You are very welcome to join us on The Breakfast Show here on Sky News this Tuesday morning. More families have had their holidays cancelled, with staff shortages at airports causing long queues, missed flights and ruined half-term getaways. Gatwick, Manchester, Bristol and Stansted airports have all been affected by the disruption. Trade unions are warning that chaos could last the entire summer, and Labour has accused the government of being missing in action. I'll get their response in just a moment. It's Tuesday, the 31st of May. Ministers are urged to intervene to stop holidays being ruined as airports and airlines struggle to cope.
And we're live here in Dublin Airport, where the Irish government is demanding answers after travel chaos saw 1,000 people miss their flights.
Also ahead, the Prime Minister faces a growing revolt as 3 more Conservative MPs demand a vote of confidence in his leadership.
Good morning. I'll be live in Ukraine as Russian forces march towards the centre of the strategically important city of Severodonetsk.
I'm live in Brussels, where EU leaders have agreed a compromise deal to block Russian oil imports, but only if it's delivered by sea.
UEFA orders an independent report into the chaotic events before the Champions League final. Yep, it is him. Johnny Depp appears on stage in Sheffield and London's Royal Albert Hall as the jury considers its verdict in the defamation trial between Mr Depp and his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Also coming up on the programme for you this morning, wherever you're watching us around the world, I'm going to be speaking to the former food bank user turned campaigner, that's Jack Monroe, after new data shows just how much some food prices have risen in the last year.
Through times of peace and serenity.
And getting the band back together for the Jubilee. We'll be hearing from the singing soldiers whose album outsold Whitney and Michael Jackson. Morning, everybody. Long queues, delayed flights and cancelled holidays. There have been chaotic scenes at airports right across the country, with staff struggling to cope and half-term getaways completely ruined. Trade unions are blaming airports and airlines for cutting too many jobs during the pandemic. They warn that the disruption could last all summer. Joining us now from Ireland is Stephen Murphy. He is in Dublin for us this morning. Hundreds of people missed flights because they couldn't even get into the airport. Hello to you, Stephen. Tell us more. Good morning.
Morning, Kay, from Dublin Airport. It's more than 100. It's actually, it was at least 1,000 people missed their flights here on Sunday. That was the worst day of the delays that we have seen so far, and it reflects the pattern that we've seen at airports right across the UK and also in Europe and places like Amsterdam as well. And that is essentially airports have been caught out by the incredible recovery in travel numbers since COVID restrictions fell away. So here in Dublin Airport, for example, where it actually isn't too bad so far this morning. A lot of these queues have actually eased since we arrived a bit earlier on. Travel numbers are approaching 95% of pre-COVID figures, but the staffing level, after hundreds of staff were left go during the pandemic, is only at 70%. So we saw real chaos here over the weekend, and this coming weekend here at Dublin in Ireland is a bank holiday. So there's real concern, and the management here at Dublin Airport have today been given a deadline of this morning to present an emergency plan to the Irish government. The Irish government expressing its extreme frustration and disappointment at the scenes we saw. This is a capital city. This is a major European travel hub, and the airport on Sunday had to tweet that there was hundreds of people queuing outside the terminal buildings, telling them you're going to miss your flight. It's unprecedented scenes, and we have seen that reflected in places like Gatwick and Bristol and Manchester. As you say, plans thrown into utter disarray over staffing levels and airports simply not being able to cope by the amount of people turning up. And it really has cast a pall of uncertainty over travel plans for so many families, Kay, as we head into summer.
OK, thanks very much. Thank you, Stephen. Shall we chat about it with the Minister, Lord Parkinson? Hi, thanks for joining us. What's the government going to do about this travel chaos?
Well, the colleagues at the Department for Transport are working with the industry. We have been for many months urging them to make sure they've got enough staff so that, thanks to the success of the vaccine rollout, as people are able to travel again, that people can take the holidays that they've missed and that they've deserved. And, of course, it's causing a lot of distress for people, particularly in half-term, people with family and children with them. It's very distressing if you turn up at the airport and your flight isn't ready. So we've been saying to the industry that they need to prepare for this. They need to have the staff that they need to make sure people can get away and enjoy holidays.
But they haven't got them.
No, and we've been using some of our post-Brexit freedoms to make sure that people can be hired more quickly. But this is something
That's
the industry,
though, isn't it?
But well, yeah, but in some of the regulations. Can be met, but can be met speedily. But we've been saying to the industry for quite some time they should have been preparing for this.
They say it's your fault. I remember, actually, the Ryanair boss, Michael O'Leary, was on the show quite a lot, actually. He said the government support for airlines during the coronavirus pandemic had been lamentable.
Well, there's lots of opinionated people in the aviation industry, but we've been working with people across the sector to make sure that they were preparing for the reopening of the economy and of travel after the pandemic abated. We've been on a long pathway back to recovery so that people can enjoy this moment, and the company should be making sure that people are able to get away on holiday and enjoy it fully.
He said, along with others, that you should have done more to help them at the time, and then they wouldn't have to have got rid of as many staff as they did. Well,
we've been helping people across the whole economy with support for jobs, but of course the pandemic hit lots of sectors in lots of different ways. There was a period when people just simply weren't able to travel for obvious reasons, but there's been many months where we've been back on the track, particularly since the vaccination to this moment, and the industry should have been recruiting people
before now.
Ready, yeah.
So it's their fault?
Well, no, the company should have had the people in place, and we're working with the colleagues at the Department for Transport to make sure that they can get people in as swiftly as possible. Is
there anything more that the government can do now, though, to help? Because a lot of people who are watching us at home this morning will be thinking, I don't know if I'm going to go on holidays, I'm not spending 14 hours in the airport with the kids, what should I do?
Well, look, companies should be making very clear to people what they can do. Some are saying, make sure you get to the airport in good time. So we need clear communication from the companies to the people that are travelling, and the colleagues at the Department for Transport are working with the industry to make sure that they're getting people in as swiftly as they can.
But you accept that people standing outside of the airport trying to get in is just not an acceptable scene. Is there anything more that the government can do? Well,
we need more people working in the sector, and to say we're using our post-Brexit freedoms to make sure that we can recruit people as swiftly as possible. But that's for the companies who. But
it does take 3 months to get the necessary security arrangements in place, doesn't it? So it looks as though it's going to carry on for a while. Yeah.
Well, we've had a particular busy period this week with half-term, people wanting to get away, but the industry needs to be reacting to that and getting people in as quickly as possible and communicating clearly to people travelling. I know people who've been caught up in it as well. It's very distressing. People need clear communication, need to know what to expect when they get to the airport, but of course they also need to be able to get away on the holidays that they've booked.
They certainly do. Let's talk about the pressure on the Prime Minister. You were Theresa May's advisor when there was a vote of no confidence in her back in 2018. What was it like in the weeks leading up to that?
Well, there's an awful lot of speculation about the numbers of letters that go in, and past experience shows, not just then but before, the only person that knows how many letters that have been sent in is the chairman of the 1922 committee, and it's pretty pointless to speculate about the numbers before then. It's a distraction from the work of government, and in government we're getting on with making sure that we grow the economy to help with the cost of living. I understand that. Well,
the question is, what was it like when Theresa May, in the weeks before realising that she had to have this vote of no confidence? It must be a very stressful time.
Well, no, there was an awful lot for the government to be getting on with then, just as there is now, and she focused on it just as the Prime Minister's focusing on the things that matter now, the cost of living, making sure that we're providing the leadership we need in the face of the war in Ukraine. It's pointless speculating about something unless or until it happens.
What's the relief like afterwards, when you've won the vote?
Well, it allowed us to get back on with the things that mattered then, but we'll cross those bridges if and when we come to them.
I mean, there's a lot of criticism piling up for the Prime Minister. We at Sky News understand 27 MPs have publicly called for the PM to go. Some of the papers are suggesting it's 29. As you said, there's only one person that knows the exact number, but it does feel as though the rebellion is growing.
Well, it's pointless. Only Sir Graham Brady knows how many letters are sent, and it's just important that across government we're focusing on the things that matter. At DCMS, that's the happy news of announcing the new City of Culture winner, which we'll be doing this evening.
Yep, want to know more about that in just a second, but let me talk about Jeremy Wright, Attorney General under David Cameron. I think under Theresa May as well, I'm right in saying. He's saying it's time for the Prime Minister to go. Carl Les, the Conservative leader of North Yorkshire County Council, which I think is Sunak's constituency, or certainly covers that area, also saying it's time for him to go. How are you going as a government to reassure these people that the Prime Minister is the right person for the job?
Well, the Prime Minister has taken responsibility. He's apologised for what went on in Number 10. He's made some changes to the operation there so that people can see that a difference is being made, and he is redoubling his efforts to focus on the things that matter to people: the cost of living, the war in Ukraine.
Why is it not working then? Why are they still handing in their their letters to the 1922 committee, your colleagues?
Well, as I say, it's for colleagues in the House of Commons to decide what they want to do. In the House of Lords, that doesn't affect us. We don't write letters to the chairman of the 22. But across government, everybody is focusing on the things that matter to people, making sure they can get away on their holidays, making sure that there's help with the rising cost of living, making sure that the economy is growing, that we're getting people into good jobs, clearing the backlogs in the NHS because of the coronavirus pandemic. And that's the sort of thing that people want us to be focusing on.
Yeah. City of Culture, tell me about that.
So we've had the largest ever competition, 20 places bid to be the next City of Culture in 2025. Coventry is just finishing its year as City of Culture and is a great example of the difference that it can make. It's had £172 million worth of direct investment as a result of it, and £500 million worth of wider regeneration. But more importantly, it gets people back out and enjoying the community, meeting their neighbours, trying new things, supporting the high street, and that's particularly important as we're emerging from the economy. Culture can be such a central way of helping regeneration and our recovery from the pandemic.
Should we play a quick game?
Yeah.
OK. Imperial measurements. I've not done this yet this morning. How many ounces are there in a pound in the UK?
14?
16.
16.
Should I ask you another one?
Go on then.
If you ordered a pound of sausages, approximately how many grams of sausages are you getting? 250, 350, 450 or 550? If you order a pound of sausages, approximately how many grams of sausages are you getting? Ooh, I know. Should we say, I was going to say, I would say 350. You're saying 250. Let me see. Question 7, it's upside down at the bottom. It's actually 450. 450. We were both wrong on that one. Which is more? This is the last one. Which is more, 4 pints or 3 litres? 4 pints or 3 litres?
3 litres.
I'd say 3 litres. Question 9, upside down this way. Question 9. Yay! Yeah. So we'll find out this evening.
We do, yes.
OK,
that's right.
Fantastic. It's great to see you. Thanks for playing along. Still to come on the programme, we'll tell you what's happening as far as the papers are concerned. The Eye describes the threat to Boris Johnson's political future as growing by the day, with speculation mounting that the number of letters of no confidence submitted may now be nearing the threshold to a vote for the leadership. Excuse me. The Guardian hears that the Prime Minister's shift towards more overtly right-wing policies in recent days is what has prompted the backbench unrest. The Mail leads with concerns from ministers that the cost of living crisis has pushed the cost of filling the average family car with diesel to more than £100. Metro reports on massive airport queues over the half-term school holidays, delays which are expected to continue into the Jubilee weekend. That's also the lead story in The Times, which reports that the government is becoming increasingly angry with airports and airlines. Still to come on the programme for you in the next hour, I'm going to be speaking to Labour's Shadow Financial Secretary, James Murray. As travel chaos continues across UK airports, we'll speak to one of the thousands of people who've had their flights cancelled. And later this hour, speaking to an artist who's captured some of Queen Elizabeth's most iconic moments through pop art paintings to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee. Now, after weeks of debate, the European Union has agreed on a compromise deal to block some Russian oil imports. In Ukraine itself, Russian forces enter the strategically important city of Severodonetsk in the east of the country. Joining us now are Siobhan, who is in Brussels, where that announcement was made last night, and also Ali, who is in Kiev for us this morning. Alistair, to you, first of all, the latest from where you are. Good morning.
Good morning, Kay. Well, as you said, the town of Severodonetsk, which probably up until about a week ago most viewers wouldn't have heard of, has now become one of the key battlegrounds in the east of Ukraine. It is a railway hub, but now it is the priority for Russian forces. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said as much in the last 24 hours. The reason why it is so important for Russian forces to capture it is because it will help them knit together their various movements in eastern Donbass, and they will have captured the entirety of the Luhansk region to add to the Donetsk region. And so they've concentrated a lot of their forces in trying to take Severodonetsk. They have been thwarted by Ukrainian forces. To be honest, we probably thought that it would have fallen by now. It hasn't. The regional governor says that Ukrainian forces will stay and they will fight, but it is becoming street by street. We understand this morning the Russians have started to make progress towards the centre of the city, so perhaps the resistance might only have hours left before the Russians do fully take it. But it is becoming a very, very brutal, bloody battle. Most of the buildings, well in excess of 90% now destroyed, and it is becoming something akin to what we saw in Mariupol.
OK, thank you. And let's bring in Siobhan as well. Tell us more about the announcement that was made last night, Siobhan. Good morning.
Morning, Kay. Yeah, well, we thought it might not happen yesterday. Very negative words on arrival at the leaders' conference here yesterday. But finally, late last night, there was this agreement in principle from the leaders that will bring in a ban on Russian oil imports. Now, the important detail is that this will be imports being brought in by sea. And that means it's essentially a concession for Hungary. We've always had concerns about this, have been blocking it for the last 3 weeks or so, because they're worried that they are landlocked. They very much rely on oil coming from Russia, coming through a pipeline. So at the moment, they're going to get an exemption from that. This will still have an effect, though. This set of sanctions, once it comes into place, will mean that there's a ban on Russian oil imports, hitting around 90% of imports that come to the EU by the end of the year. And that's going to have an impact, of course, on the money that goes into Vladimir Putin's coffers, the money that he uses currently to fund the war in Ukraine. Just to underline, though, this isn't the only thing that they've talked about. There are also going to be sanctions on 3 state broadcasters as well, on key individuals, and also taking the largest Russian bank off the SWIFT system. OK, thanks very much indeed, both of you. Much appreciated. We've just heard, actually, that Russian forces are pushing into the eastern Ukraine city of Severodonetsk. Sky News has joined the Ukrainian 93rd Brigade nearby. The unit is preparing for a long deployment in the Donbass. Our special correspondent Alex Crawford has this report from the front lines near Izium in eastern Ukraine.
This is what the Russians have a lot of and which the Ukrainians want to see more of, and they say will make all the difference in the war. We've got to move quickly now. They have to get out of the area because they know the Russians will be looking to fire on this position and obliterate the crew. This is what they're up against. The Ukrainian government says this shows the Russians using thermobaric bombs on the Donbass. This is what the most horrific war of the 21st century looks like, the statement said. The Ukrainian troops on the front line are horrifyingly exposed, having to defend large stretches of open land and keep an enemy at bay who they are rarely close enough to see. The Russians are using their long-range artillery to constant devastating effect. The smoke that you can see there shows the Russian positions. It's a village which is half controlled by the Ukrainians and half by the Russians. Chief is asking his troops what the situation's like there. They've been shelled an hour or so earlier. This small band of men have been holding this position for weeks now. coming under constant attack every few hours from Russian positions. Oh, here we go. N-law. They proudly show us some of the foreign weapons which have helped so far. Where's this one from? It's from Britain. They're designed to destroy tanks at short range with a single shot, and they need little training to operate. But here in the forest and farmland, its capability is limited, Ivan tells us. In this position, it isn't that effective, he says, because their tanks don't come closer than 3.5 kilometers, and this weapon can't reach the target at that distance effectively. They need long-range artillery and tanks themselves, he says, if they're to stop this reinvigorated Russian invasion.
Yeah, you can see them in the distance.
They've had some crucial successes, though, recently, somehow managing to stop several Russian tanks from crossing the dam just in front of them. And planting a Ukrainian flag to emphasize this territory is still very much theirs for now.
Well, that's our special correspondent Alex Crawford on the front line with the 93rd Brigade. You can watch the full version of her report on our website at skynews.com and also on our YouTube channel. Looking at some of today's other headlines for you now, though, and UEFA have ordered an independent report into the events surrounding the Champions League final. French authorities have defended police for firing tear gas and pepper spray at Liverpool supporters, blaming fraud on an industrial scale. Liverpool Chief Executive Billy Hogan has said it is completely inappropriate for the French authorities to be forming conclusions so early on. The government's terminated an agreement with P&O Ferries in response to the firm's sacking of nearly 800 seafarers without notice, replacing them with cheaper agency workers. The Home Office said P&O's contract with the Border Force Agency would come to an end with immediate effect. The Canadian government has introduced legislation that would put a freeze on importing, buying or selling handguns. Canada already has plans to ban 1,500 types of military-style firearms and offer a mandatory buyback programme that will begin at the end of the year. Austerity policies have had a substantial contribution to the stagnation of life expectancy in the UK. That's according to new research. Throughout the 20th century, life expectancy grew year on year, but began to stagnate around 2012. Researchers in Glasgow say government cuts were in part to blame. A further 71 monkeypox cases have been detected in England, according to the UK Health Security Agency. This brings the total number of confirmed monkeypox cases in England to 172. Now, how do you go about building Britain's biggest railway bridge? We've got the answer for you. Can he fix it? Yes, he can. Shingi is with us. Good morning, Shingi. Tell us more.
Well, you might say something about my new get-up. So this behind me is essentially a bridge building machine or a launch girder. It is 160 metres long and it weighs 700 tonnes, and it's being used to build what is unsurprisingly going to be the largest railway bridge in the country. I'll step out so you can take a closer look at it. So this will be used to lift giant concrete segments, which you can see there already. Some of them are in place. They weigh 140 tonnes each, and they'll form the arches of the bridge, keeping them in position. It will be made up of a total of 100 concrete segments. And like I say, when it will be completed, which is scheduled for 2 years away, it will form a part of the longest railway bridge in the UK, stretching between West London and parts of the M25. So it's a key cog in what will eventually be HS2. That is a project which obviously has a lot of questions around it, from the cost. Now it could cost up to or close to £100 billion, which is over budget. It was originally scheduled to cost about £55.7 billion, and there was obviously the recent controversy about parts of HS2 being scrapped as well, the East Midlands to Leeds link being one of those, and other parts of the northern element. But when you look at things like this, you do think about Crossrail, part of which was completed last week, and just the country's appetite for big, interesting infrastructure projects which make travel easier across the country. And this is a key part of what will be another one of those.
OK, for now, thank you. Johnny Depp's turned up on stage at a gig in London just a night after doing the same in Sheffield. Surprising, the actor appeared unannounced with Jeff Beck. Right now, the jury is considering its verdict in the defamation trial between Mr. Depp and his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Quick look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
We're in for a showery few days, but it'll turn mostly fine to end the week. There's a chance of more unsettled conditions in the south on Sunday. Quite cool out of town with some mist and fog. Ireland and Northern Ireland are mainly dry.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Now, a new study has suggested that a moderate coffee habit could cut the risk of an early death by up to 31%. Research using data on more than 171,000 people found those enjoying a couple of cups of coffee per day lived longer than non-drinkers. The apparent health benefits were present, whether or not the drinks were sweetened with sugar. How do you take your coffee? Let me know. Do you like one of those fancy coffees, or do you just like instant? Tweet me if you'd like to, at Kay Burley. We'll share some of them. What does that say? Mocha something. How do you like yours? Let me know. We'll share it with the world. Now, in case you woke up this morning wondering how much the world's largest Jaffa cake weighed, I can tell you it's 80 kilos or 176 pounds in old money. Should have tested the minister on that. Former Great British Bake Off winner Frances Quinn has baked the world's largest Jaffa cake for a second time, beating her own World Guinness record set in 2017. The cake took 11 hours to make from start to finish, has a diameter of 175 centimetres or 69 inches, and weighs the equivalent of more than 6,557 regular-sized Jaffa cakes. The only other question to ask really is, why? And these are pictures of the chaos at the airports across the UK yesterday. Holidaymakers queuing for hours, only to be told that their flights had been cancelled. Some fed-up people at Stansted even took a little nap on the airport floor. I'm not sure that's a good idea. That in the Daily Express this morning. And this, golden doodle. A cross between a golden retriever and a poodle was having a positively lovely time being carried by its owner on the escalators at Liverpool Street Underground Station in London. No matter what the size, dogs must be carried on tube escalators in case their fur gets trapped. One-way ticket to barking. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. From carrying a dog up an escalator to climbing Everest with a tiger. This wildlife photographer, Paul Goldstein, who has just completed the Everest Marathon. The 59-year-old wasn't alone, though. He had his trusty stuffed tiger in tow, which he's also taken up Kilimanjaro. The Londoner has so far raised £100,000 for his Worth More Alive charity, that's why, which aims to protect Bengal tigers. Good for him. You wouldn't miss him in a crowd, would you? Now, still to come after the break, speaking to an artist who's captured some of Queen Elizabeth's most iconic moments through pop art paintings to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee. That to come in just a moment. Do stay tuned. Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to The Breakfast Show here on Sky News. Top stories for you this morning. Travel disruption continues across airports in the UK and Ireland, with ministers urged to intervene to stop holidays being ruined as airlines struggle to cope. We've just heard from the minister on this programme, who says the airlines should have been better prepared. EU leaders have agreed to a compromise deal to block Russian oil imports, paving the way for tougher sanctions on Moscow. More MPs call for the Prime Minister to resign over Partygate, with some predicting Boris Johnson may be forced into a confidence vote. Well, more on the travel disruption around the country now. Earlier, I spoke to the Arts Minister, Lord Parkinson. He told me the industry should have been preparing for this a huge surge in travellers leading up to the Jubilee bank holiday weekend.
There's been many months where we've been back on the track, particularly since the vaccination to this moment, and the industry should have been recruiting people
before now.
Ready. Yeah.
So it's their fault.
Well, no, the company should have had the people in place, and we're working with the colleagues at the Department for Transport to make sure that they can get people in as swiftly as possible.
Tamara's here. You saw the minister with the
imperial measure.
Yeah.
You're not going to, are you?
I am. What is the metric size of a standard bottle of wine? You should know.
750.
Yeah. You obviously would have on your face because you got it right. How much is in a dram? A 16th of an ounce, a 16th of a peck, or a 16th of an inch?
A 16th of an inch.
No, it's a measure of alcohol.
Oh, they'll have to keep the metric ones for me, I think.
Yeah, 16th of an ounce.
Every day's a school day.
It certainly is, even for the minister. It was interesting what he was saying about travel this morning.
Indeed, he was saying that the industry had months to prepare for this. They knew that when the COVID restrictions were lifted, that people would want to go on a long-awaited holiday and that they should have got the staff in place. But the industry say that, you know, it was made very difficult for them. They couldn't keep people on furlough for knocking on for 2 years. Of course, people were let go and they've struggled to bring people back in. And they were in a difficult situation of, do they lay on way fewer flights, or do they have this awful situation where people are having their flights cancelled and having to sleep on airport floors or not go away at all? So government and industry sort of blaming each other here. Yeah. But I think, you know, the people losing out are, of course, holiday makers, and it doesn't look like, certainly this half term, that any measures can be brought forward, particularly to help people. Better communication with those who are going on holiday is something that's obviously being called for.
And as far as the votes of no confidence are concerned?
Well, Stephen Parkinson, of course, used to work for Theresa May. We remember very well the day that the letters threshold was met with Theresa May, December 2018, and it looks like sort of drip feed is turning into a steady stream of letters going in calling for Boris Johnson to resign. The magic number there is 54. Now, he said it's not helpful to speculate on how near we are because they're all secret. Only one man knows how many there are, and his name is Graham Brady. But if they hit the threshold of 54, and we know of 27 in public, and there's probably quite a few more behind the scenes, then what happens? There is a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister, and 180 Conservative MPs, half the party, need to vote against him in order to oust him. So it's a pretty high bar, considering that almost that many MPs are ministers or ministerial aides or in some way benefit from being in Boris Johnson's government. So those who are putting the letters in will have to consider what happens if they get this vote, they then don't succeed in ousting him, and he's then safe for a whole year. So the timing is going to be important for these rebels, and it may be difficult for them because, unlike with Theresa May, who had upset a particular faction, the Brexiteers, who were all working in coordination, this doesn't feel very coordinated. There are letters coming out of nowhere from different MPs, from different areas of the country, who don't seem to have much in common with each other.
Do we know, as soon as the 54th letter hits his desk, does he tell us then, or what happens?
So normally, Graham Brady, who's the chair of the Backbenchers Committee, would say that the threshold has been exceeded. Now, Parliament is in recess, in half-term, basically, this week. So this doesn't normally happen in recess. So whether he could then hold on until, say, next Monday, when MPs are back, in order to have this confidence vote, because they obviously need to be here for it to happen, we don't know exactly what the process will be, given it's in recess. So he may hold off for a few days, but certainly Tory MPs will be notified. So if anyone wants to take their letter out at the last minute, then they'll be able to.
OK, tomorrow's take at 9 o'clock. Looking forward
to it then.
Thank you. More now on the travel chaos and the disruption impacting airports right across the country. Let's speak to Amanda Ferguson, who's one of the thousands of people whose flights were cancelled. Hi, thanks for joining us on the programme. Tell us what happened to you.
Good morning, Kay. Yes, I understand that there's more important things happening in the world, and we were among the lucky travellers who was making their way home. But we arrived at Gatwick on Sunday evening, and we found out that our flight was being cancelled because our boarding passes didn't scan. So we then spent roughly 2 hours on the phone with EasyJet trying to get to Dublin, but they refused to put us on a Dublin flight with another carrier. Then they were going to send us to Southend-on-Sea to a hotel, which would have been a 3-hour round trip onto our journey. So we booked ourselves into a hotel that was near the airport. We had a sort of layer head downs for a few hours. Then at about 4 a.m, back to Gatwick, and we flew from Gatwick to Glasgow, and then from Glasgow to Belfast, and arrived home yesterday at about lunchtime, when we should have arrived home on Sunday evening.
We've heard from EasyJet. They say that they're very sorry. They say we've provided customers with options to rebook, including the alternative carriers where no EasyJet flights are available, or receive a full refund, etc., etc. Hotel accommodation available as well. Did you find that they were being very helpful?
Well, not particularly. I felt sorry for the ground staff because people were, particularly those who were heading away, were very upset and angry with them. I think that they handed us a 2-page document. We tried to get on an alternative carrier and refused. We even offered to pay ourselves and were told no. So then we came up with a sort of planes, trains and automobile version to get us back to Belfast. And I think probably because I'm a journalist, it's probably the last person they want in the middle of one of these sort of events. And, you know, the staff on the ground were being as helpful as possible, but I think there was a difficulty in communication with the call centre, and that they didn't understand why perhaps we wanted to get to Dublin because it was only 100 miles up the road from Belfast. So it added a bit of an adventure to our trip to London to see ABBA and to Brighton and to see everything that was on offer there. But certainly I think my other half, being a very sort of chilled out person and a calm person, probably helped me stay calm with this. And, you know, as I said, we know that it's not the most important thing going on in the world, but you really feel for people who were traveling with toddlers, who were traveling with families, who were missing out on connecting flights that were actually going to get them on their holiday. So after a 12-hour sleep, I'm back in Belfast, and I have to now go about filling in all the forms and trying to claim all the money back for the hotel and all of that sort of stuff.
Were you offered a replacement flight? Because I think, don't they have to offer you, if another airline is travelling to the same place, they have to offer you a flight seat on that plane?
Well, this was the problem, but because we arrived on Sunday evening, we were told that the next flight to Belfast was going to be on Tuesday evening. And I said, I'm not spending another 2 nights in Dublin. And then we said, look, there's an Aer Lingus flight there that will get us into Dublin. Can you please put us on that? And they didn't, which I think they might have been incorrect in refusing us that. So then they essentially said that they could get us to another airport in Britain and then onwards to Belfast. So the reason I picked Glasgow is because I used to live there as a student, and also because we thought, well, if there is another cancellation between London and Glasgow, at least if we can get into Scotland, we can get the ferry back over to Northern Ireland and back into Belfast. So it was a roundabout way of getting home. But I do know that other people who stayed in the hotel that we booked into were also from Belfast, and they managed to get them on a different Belfast flight to a different Belfast airport. So I don't know what went wrong with us on the phone, but we're back home now a little later than anticipated. And I just hope that the process of claiming back all of the money that was put out on, you know, in advance is going to be smooth sailing, because I can't be bothered with a lot of form filling and several more hours on the phone to EasyJet.
Yeah, it's always a bummer for these airlines when it's an eloquent journalist that they take on. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
From fishermen to pensioners, food clubs to families, Sky News is in Plymouth this week looking at the cost of living. Dan Whitehead investigates how rising fuel and energy prices are affecting businesses in the port city.
For fish merchant Ricky, it's a 4:30 a.m. start every day. The fish he sells here in Plymouth ends up in restaurants across the country. But rising costs means cutting a deal with fishermen and suppliers is getting harder.
From the very beginning, obviously the boats have to go out and catch it. Their fuel's gone up, like I say, almost double. So therefore that's got to be passed on to us. Our bills in here have gone through the roof. We've got to pass that on to our customers. We can't absorb it. As you can tell, everything's gone up. It's just ridiculous.
For Ricky, bigger bills are leading to some awkward conversations.
Restaurants and hotels, obviously they're going to look for the best value they can get at all times. That's always been the case, but now it's even more important. Restaurants can't afford to staff, can't afford to run, can't afford to open. That puts us out of business, which they're, on the reverse hand, puts fishermen out of business.
What you realise is that everything is linked. Catching these fish in Plymouth now costs more, and it's not just us as consumers who are having to pay. It impacts every business in the chain.
We buy trays of eggs from a particular local supplier. They used to be £3 for a tray. They've now gone up to £6. So I'm having to go somewhere else to source them.
At Cafe Bene, Kerry serves up breakfast, but is yet to pay herself a wage. With ingredients costing more and cooking oil up 30%, it's only a matter of time before prices go up.
Our breakfast, all-day breakfast, is £7. They haven't gone up since we opened the business, so that is something that we need to be looking at. It's trial and error. I'm a bit scared, actually, to be honest, to pass that cost on. So at the moment, I'm sort of keeping it where it is.
Why are you scared?
because I don't want people to not come in. I've worked really hard, nearly 2 years, to build this place, and I'm afraid by putting the price up too much, people just will go elsewhere.
Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Plymouth.
Now, our next guest has put together what they described as a love letter to Queen Elizabeth II. Artist Owen Grant, in this, hi, has painted a book capturing some of the most iconic moments in the Queen's life through a pop art style biography with key quotes from Her Majesty. Hi, it's nice to see you. Tell me about the book.
So, like you said in the introduction, it's a visual biography of Her Majesty, and I've created 27 artworks that span her life and tell the story of her life, but also in key moments that connect her life with ours and how her reign is intertwined with the history of our lives.
OK, so give me an idea of some of the artwork that you have portrayed and how you chose those particular subjects.
I think one that's particularly poignant for me is in '97, around the death of Princess Diana of Wales. It was a really difficult time for the monarchy, and...
Cool. Cool.
Thank you. So for me, there was a point where the world was all turned upside down, and we were all so sad because it was an enormous loss. But when the Queen came to us on television and said, you know, I speak to you now as your Queen and as a grandmother, that speech, I think, just hit us all in the hearts and made us understand that world event in a better way.
Yeah.
And I think she's done that over and over and over again throughout her 7 decades.
Yeah. Other people often feel that they can't really connect with royalty, and particularly Her Majesty. What's your view on that when people say, "Oh, I can't possibly comprehend what sort of woman she would be like"?
Yeah, I understand that completely, because it is an abstract relationship, but it's a very significant yet unique relationship, that relationship between sovereign and subject. And the Queen, she's head of state. She represents us. She embodies, I think, the best of who we are, so that's how I tend to relate to her. And
what are your earliest memories of her?
My earliest memories were, I grew up in Canada, so I'm a child of the Commonwealth. And back in the 60s, when I went to school at age 5, we started primary school, and every morning we would begin the day by singing what we would call God Save the Queen in Canada. And we'd stand by our desks, and I would look at the blackboards, and above the blackboards there was this beautiful photograph of the Queen, and music came through the loudspeaker, and we all sang this lovely song day in, day out, month after month. So I very quickly built this relationship with this woman, and I learned that even though I was growing up in this wonderful, tiny community, I was connected to a bigger, broader world and an enormous and magnificent history through the Queen.
What's the relationship like between Canada and the Queen? Apparently, it's the most visited overseas country for Her Majesty.
I think there's a huge love for the Queen in Canada, and it's been really refreshing and exciting for me with this book and through social media. So many people from my childhood have contacted me and then told me their stories and how they once saw the Queen, or how, as a new Canadian, as an immigrant, she helped them belong. So I think a lot of people have similar stories to mine, and how this woman has been a unifier in so many ways.
Have you ever met her?
I have not met her. I've seen her when, I think it was 1976, she came to Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's a town where I grew up. And she came to plant a tree and turn the soil for a ceremony at a Veterans Memorial Hospital. So I remember that clearly, and she was sort of shimmering in her beautiful mint outfit in the fog in Halifax.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you have this mystical memory of
Yeah, I mean, the memory sort of, is covered by the mists of time, but it's this beautiful sort of moment. And I was there with my mom, and so it was just a nice day.
And what are you expecting and hoping for this weekend?
Well, I hope to get down to the Trooping of the Colour and to the pageant and just sort of be part of the energy, because I think what's really beautiful, especially for me, someone who's newly British, I became a British citizen in 2021. So to be part of, thank you. So to be part of this event and sort of be amongst my fellow patriots, it's going to be a really beautiful experience.
Yeah, and you're most looking forward to Trooping the Colour?
I think so.
Or maybe the balcony, because we hope that she'll be on the balcony. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
we're
do.
Really hoping
Yeah.
that that's the case. Well, you can watch it on Sky.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a fantastic pageant that's planned for the Sunday afternoon that reflects on her 70-year reign. So it's going to be just amazing. Sadly, she's not going to be out trooping the colour, but she is going to be represented, I think, by the Princess Royal. I think I'm right in saying that. So it's going to be amazing. And then all the beacons, of course. I'm giving it all away, aren't I? I'm giving it all away. It's lovely to see. This is what I'll be doing.
The Queen is about to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee, something that no other monarch has done.
That's 70 years of duty, dedication and service. Sky News will bring you the celebrations and pageantry to mark this historic occasion.
Plus, a very special guest.
I'll be joining the Sky News team as we celebrate the very best of Britain, and we cannot wait. That's the Platinum Jubilee on Sky News.
Yes, 7 o'clock on Thursday morning, I will be outside Buckingham Palace and probably be there until Sunday evening or thereabouts with a quick sojourn over to St Paul's Cathedral as well for the service of Thanksgiving. You'll watch it all, of course, here on Sky News. Now, the number of menopause discrimination cases in UK job courts are on the rise, with the government set to soon publish a workplace menopause inquiry. Claire Hattrick is with us now. She owns a website which guides and supports women through the menopause. Hi, thanks for joining us, Claire. It's great to see you. I'm so pleased that people... I mean, you had to be anonymous, really, when it came to the menopause. As soon as you hit the menopause, women thought that was it, it's all over, and it's so not the case.
It absolutely isn't. It's frightening how much it personally hit me. I've probably lost about 9 years of my life to horrendous joint pain now. I set up clipboardclaire.com in July 2020, being an out-of-work beauty therapist due to COVID, with the love and support of my daughters, Abby and Beth. One's a biochemist, the other's a London paramedic, and they said, Mum, you need to give your joints a break, and you've got this passion for helping other women and making sure that nobody else loses years of their life to menopause like I have. Very quickly, I took over a Facebook group and realised there was a big gap in the market for a menopause help book. So I think you've got that book, Kay, but we self-published a menopause help book, which is very simple and written and aimed at men and businesses. So it's a few pages per symptom. I don't think anybody's going to read 400 or 500 pages of book if they can just pick up a book and glance at it. But it's definitely something that we need to get out in the community. We need to start talking about this, and businesses and men need to be on side as well. It's incredibly debilitating. Women, are affected with brain fog. It's not just the physical symptoms, it's the mental ones as well. I know you're a big advocate of this as well, Kay, and we love it that anybody is championing and talking about this. And the news have been absolutely brilliant, and you guys have been really behind us, and it's so important with the HRT shortages. It's debilitating for women, and we really need to get this, these shortages sorted out. I know I'm still finding that ladies are contacting me through clipboardclaire.com every day saying, I still can't get my gel pump, I'm panicking, what do I do? It's coming through slowly through the system, but not quickly enough. I know Caroline Noakes and Carolyn Harris MPs have got an all-party group where they're really trying to push, the government to look at women's health in a bigger and broader sense.
Well, it doesn't stop you talking, Claire, does it? That's for sure. Talk to me about what businesses should do. I'm lucky that Sky is very positive when it comes to menopause and helping women through the menopause, and we have working groups that help other women so that we can talk about it and talk about symptoms and the like. But not every business is like that.
They're not. I think the more it's talked about, I think businesses realise that if the government are going to roll out a basic menopause policy, I think they realise that they're going to have to get on board. It's going to be simple, but I think if you want to keep women in the workplace, there are a potential 1 million women, Kay, that could leave and walk out of their jobs and think they've got brain, they've got brain fog and they think they've got dementia. I think if we can keep women in the workplace, it's good for your mental health. And why should women who've worked incredibly hard walk away from their jobs?
Exactly that. What are your top tips?
My top tips, head over to Clipboard Claire. It's really good. There's small blogs that are aimed at men and businesses as well as informing women. It's important. I'm now running menopause sofa sessions to get the chat going. And I think if we can make it the norm, I think we'll be halfway there. And I think it's very long overdue, Kay, very long overdue.
It's the embarrassment as well, isn't it? I mean, I remember when I first started suffering from symptoms of the menopause, I was really embarrassed. And when I knew a hot flush was coming, it made it worse because I was embarrassed about it as well. So I think by talking about it, especially to younger people, men and women, then you become less embarrassed. That's always my top tip. What's yours?
Yeah, I think if we can, I think women who suffer with vaginal dryness, I've got friends that can't sit, can't stand, can't walk, and less than 10% of women go and get help for it. I think if everybody understood it and realised that it's not, you know, you're not on your own, I think, you know, that would be absolutely great. Again, it's just getting education is key. If we can start in schools and roll it out, you know, across businesses, it would be the norm and you know, society would be wonderful, wouldn't it? We'd all be menopause friendly.
Exactly that. It's great to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning, Claire. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, just chat about it. Quick look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
We're in for a showery few days, but it'll turn mostly fine to end the week. There's a chance of more unsettled conditions in the south on Sunday. It's quite cool out of town with some mist and fog. Ireland and Northern Ireland are mainly dry, but Britain has widespread showers.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
We've been talking about imperial and metric measurements this morning. If you go to my Twitter feed, @Burley, you can find out how the Minister got on our little quiz. Also pictures there of the chaos at airports across the UK yesterday. Holidaymakers queuing for hours, only to be told that their flight had been cancelled. Some fed-up people at Stansted even took a nap on the floor. Don't do that. But we have got a happy picture for you. Look at this golden doodle. It's a cross between a golden retriever and a poodle. He was having a positively fantastic time being carried by its owner on the escalators at Liverpool Street Underground Station in London. No matter what their size, dogs must be carried on tube escalators in case their fare gets trapped. I've already done the barking line, so I'm certainly not going to do it again. What I am going to do is pause for thought, and I'll see you in just a couple of minutes' time, top of the hour. So stay tuned our way.